Hey there guys, back again with some Modern on Budget, and today I wanted to try to do something with the new Euro meta, but like say, hey, take this into the meta. But if I'm gonna be honest, we can't really say how this Euro ban is going to change the meta, especially since we don't know what other bans are coming. So I'm just gonna toss out a deck that I've wanted to record for a while, and it's a deck that honestly you could probably take into the new meta. It's a very good use of the new card from Kaldheim called Pyre of Heroes, which if you watch my Prime Speaker Vanifar deck, you're gonna get a similar vibe off of this card. It says pay 2 mana, tap, sacrifice a creature, search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature and has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. So at sorcery speed, you can sacrifice a creature and go tutor a creature that shares a creature type with it. So like maybe I have a zombie cleric and I want to go search for a human cleric, or I have a zombie cleric and I will go search for a zombie wizard. Like I can do that. And I have a really interesting idea for a deck using this card, but it's gonna have to be put on the back burner because I still have to try to figure out how to make a budget. But basically, you look for, if you sack a 2-drop though, you grab a 3-drop. If you sack a 3-drop, you grab a 4-drop, and that's going to be a way to get extra value out of this deck. But the way I built this deck is that you don't have to go all out on the Pyre of Heroes idea or combo. You're not trying to untap it. You're not trying to add mana so that you can untap it. There's a Burning Tree Emissary combo out there, and like, oh, it enters and adds 2 mana. And I'm like, yeah. You know what else it does? Nothing else. It doesn't untap your It doesn't untap. I keep saying Vanifar because it's the creature that does this. It doesn't untap your Pyre of Heroes. It doesn't do anything like that. So you really have to be careful with what you think you can do. What you can do though is you can play this, and it would, I guess, it would pay for itself. I don't know. But either way, we're gonna hop right into the deck. It's a very sweet deck that doesn't actually rely on Pyre of the Heroes. Pyre of the Heroes just puts it a bit over the top. So we're gonna start off with Carrion Feeder. It's a 1-drop zombie that you can sacrifice to put 1 counter on it. You can sacrifice any creature to put 1 counter on this. Cryptbreaker is a 1-drop where you can pay 2, discard a card, put a 2/2 black zombie onto the battlefield, tap 3 zombie tokens, zombies you control, and you may draw a card and lose a life. So what that does is it's like that gets past Summoning Sickness, by the way, that second part. So you can tap all the zombies that you're making, and then you can draw cards. Or one of the cards you can actually discard off of Cryptbreaker is Gravecrawler, and then you can just cast it. You may cast Gravecrawler from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. This is really awesome because if you have Gravecrawler, you can actually sacrifice it to Pyre of Heroes and go grab a 2-drop and then recast your Gravecrawler. So this is a really good card, and I've been seeing decks with it almost since I started Modern, honestly. But I love this card so much, and as you can see, it's a 5th of our deck, and it is definitely worth it for that. Next up is Butcher Ghoul that has a little more synergy with Pyre of Heroes. I've told you that this deck doesn't really rely on Pyre of Heroes, but it does have a lot of synergy with it. So things like Undying, it'll just come back, and then you can possibly even get a second use out of it. We do have a way to remove those counters from it, but the way we have to remove those counters actually ends up killing it anyway. So, like, don't try to use a Plague Vulture on this. Unless you just want an extra death trigger. Undead Augur. When Undead Augur or another zombie you control dies, draw a card, lose a life. There's some losing life, there's some drawing cards, but really, this deck like this deck is going to be drawing you a lot of cards, getting a lot of value, and just swinging in. And with Uro out of the way, a lot of decks like this that do rely on getting that little bit of extra value just over time do become more valid, because you don't have to try to compete with one, like the all-star spell that says you gain life, you draw a card, and you get ramp, and you get a huge body all in one. You don't have to compete with that, which means you can go for those more value-based decks that run things like Lingering Souls, Undead Augur, anything like that. Anyway, next up is Diagraph Colossus, which is going to be another hefty chunk of our budget, which says when it enters battlefield, enters with a 1 counter for each zombie in your graveyard. That might be a lot, and honestly, if you sacrifice a bunch of stuff beforehand, and let's say you just sacrifice, you have your grave callers in your graveyard and you don't cast them yet because you're waiting to get your Colossus out. You get your Colossus out, it's pumped up, and then you return everything from your graveyard. That's a really good use out of the card. There's a second part though that says whenever you cast a zombie spell, put a 2/2 black zombie onto the battlefield tapped. That actually has a little extra synergy than you actually think it already does, and I'll get to that in a moment. It's very similar to our Goblin deck if you watch that. Lord of the Cursed says other zombies you control get +1/+1. Pay 2 mana, tap, all zombies gain menace until end of turn. Now this card is a 2/3 already, like, okay, it's boltable, but like 2/3 is pretty good. I'm not going to complain about a 2/3. But giving things menace, especially with how many creatures we're going to have, basically reads that they're unblockable. Most of them are unblockable. But also, there are other versions of Lord of the Accursed out there that are like the place that would be like between $40 to $60, and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, Lord of the Accursed is perfect how it is. Anyway, next up is Plague Vulture, which is a 5/4 3 mana menace zombie beast, which has a little extra synergy with the deck. It says when it enters my battlefield, put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature you control. If you put it onto your Butcher Ghoul will come back no matter what. So like that is kind of a freebie, but it's not gonna like remove it so that you can go sack it to Pyre of Heroes again. If that's what you're trying to do with it, that's not what it can do. It'll just re-enter, it'll get death triggers, it'll get stuff like that. But you won't be able to sack it to Pyre of Heroes again. But Plague Vulture is definitely going to be able to get a free thing on there, or maybe you even put it on Gravecrawler, or even put it on a creature that you're planning on sacrificing. So if you do that, then you're able to just get a 5/4 for 3 mana, and it's on theme with the deck. Next up is our only 4-drop in the deck, and that's because we're only really planning on casting it with Pyre of Heroes. And it says zombie spells you play cost 1 less to play. Zombies you control get +2/+1. Now the reason this is a 1 of in the deck is kind of just because it's not a card you want to have in your hand. It's not a card you want to have in your graveyard. It's a card that you want just to have in your deck to go tutor with Pyre of Heroes. Eventually you'll probably get to the point where you can cast it with all our card draw. But really, it's a way to get extra value. But if we're really thinking about it, Diagraph Colossus, Lord of the Accursed, and Plague Vulture, we don't need a 4-drop in our deck. We have that 4-drop option if one of these no longer becomes relevant. Anyway. Next up is our section for non-creature spells, which consists of 3 Fatal Push. Amazing card. I considered 4 of it in the deck, but I don't know. I just decided to go a bit different. I decided to do a split with the removal portion of the deck. So 3 Fatal Push. You'll be getting Revolt every single time. I did go 2 Nameless Inversion. If the meta begins to shape towards things closer to like Death Shadow, where this won't be relevant, then go ahead and change change these to like 1 Village Rites and 1 Fatal Push. But I definitely think that this is a really good card depending on how the meta shapes. It synergizes really nicely with Diagraph Colossus, giving you that zombie token because it is technically a zombie spell. Village Rites to sack a thing, get 2 cards, really good synergy with Gravecrawler. Agadeem's Awakening as a very non-budget card for the deck, but a very good card for the deck, is a huge, like, massive graveyard recursion, and also you have the possibility of turning it into a land. Pyre of Heroes, I already explained it. Spawning Pool to give our mana base some extra utility, 15 swamps, because we're a mono black deck. We have no use for anything other than that. Maybe some more utility lands, maybe some fetch lands, but that's not budget. Next up is Duress as a budget Thoughtseize or Inquisition of Kozilek. It does its job. Pithing Needle in order to deal with practically any deck that I expect the meta to hold. Damping Sphere to try to mitigate combo decks and Storm decks and Tron decks if it returns, but Tron was kind of kicked out of the meta. And Dragon's Claw for those red matchups against, for example, Storm or Burn. And then Feed the Swarm to deal with pesky pesky creatures and enchantments. We sadly don't have artifact destruction in this deck. We're hoping on getting it with Duress, but other than that, we're hoping to dodge some of those graveyards and those artifact synergy decks. Anyway, this is the deck, and I really think it stands alone without Pyre of Heroes, but Pyre of Heroes just puts it over the top. I think this is a really good deck. I've played against white-black versions, mono-black versions, blue-black versions, black-red versions even. Everyone's trying to do Pyre of Heroes, and a lot of people are trying to combo with different zombies, and I really think this is a really good list. Anyway, because it's not so glass cannon with Pyre of Heroes. Either way, if you like the list, then let me know below. Hit that like button. If you want to see more of my content, hit subscribe, and you can get notified on when I am posting my next video. I post every day. Weekends are going to be a little more. Do I post I might even post a few extra videos, but for sure, every weekday I will be posting a Modern on Budget. And if you want your deck or you want a deck to be showcased, let me know below, and I'll see you next time.